minutes far spent, so we're not going to be very long this morning. But just a word from the Lord to direct us and to encourage us this morning and to teach us this morning. For in this passage we read it, what's happening here is in Exodus, the Lord is giving Moses the directives to be able to lay down the foundation of how things should be in Israel. And when we come to this particular place, he's describing the purpose of the priesthood. And so there is, if you read the passages back, there was specific garments that the priest should wear, and they were to be dressed in a certain way. The Bible does not skip on details about how the priest should be attired. For what you have to understand is that the priests had an important role in Israel. They were to be the mediators, if you will. They were to be the in-between, the ones to stand in between God and the people, if you will. They were the ones who were supposed to offer sacrifices on behalf of the people. They had a responsibility to bring these sacrifices before the Lord. A sacrifice, a sin offering, when someone had done wrong, it was their responsibility to bring it to the priest. And then what the priest would do was take that offering and bring it before the Lord. Now this offering was not for no reason, but the offering was to appease the Lord. For Israel had sinned. Israel did wrong, and at any time a certain sin was committed, there was a specific sacrifice or specific offering that was supposed to be brought before the Lord. And so the priests, if you will, were the intermediaries. They were the ones who were supposed to go before the Lord and to present the sacrifice on behalf of the people. Right. The priests were consecrated. If we were to read on in the passage, we'd see that after Moses was instructed to clothe the priest and to put on the coat and put on the robe, and then the robe of the ephod, and then the ephod, and then the breastplate, and then he was to be girded with the curious girdle of the ephod. After all that was done, and after the priests were presented before the tabernacle of the congregation, the Lord continued in his directives, and he said, listen now, Moses, you take the blood of the bullock, that you take Aaron and his sons, and let them lay their hands on the bullock, and shall kill the bullock, or offer it as a sacrifice before the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And what he did, he said, take the blood. Everyone say, take the blood. Take the blood of the bullock, and they were to put it on the horns of the altar. And then they were to take that blood, and the blood was sprinkled upon the priest. First he took blood and put it on the ear, of the right ear, and the right thumb, and the right toe, the big toe of all sides. And they the priest, thank you. And then the blood was sprinkled so that they were covered with the blood. Someone say covered with the blood. These priests had a specific purpose, and they were consecrated for a specific use. They were set aside to be able to perform the specific purpose in Israel. But as we go along the line, we see that two of Aaron's sons kind of took their power and took their authority and misused it. They used it not for the good of the people, but they used it for their own gain. The two sons came, and the Bible says they offered strange fire before the Lord. You see, there was very specific instructions as opposed to what was supposed to be offered before the Lord. There was very specific instructions as to what constituted a pleasing sacrifice before the Lord. That's right. That's right. And you take the time to read it, for it's profound when you look at what exactly the Lord desired. But it's not so much the offering itself. It's not so much that the Lord enjoyed the smell of roasted flesh, or that he enjoyed the fat of rams and of goats. But it was that he desired the people to follow his instructions. That's right. He desired the people to follow the statutes that he laid out, so that they could draw nigh unto him. And so that he could draw nigh. Because we see the Bible as a love story, and all from beginning to end, the desire of the Lord is always to inhabit the praises of his people, to dwell in the midst of his people. Amen. But Aaron's sons kind of got it backwards. See, they thought that they could offer up what they wanted, and that the Lord should just be pleased with what they offered. But this was contemptuous before the Lord. See, to be contemptuous, or they treated the Lord's offering with contempt. For contempt is a feeling, or that something is beneath you. That something doesn't matter, that is worthless, or deserves scorn, or disregarded. They didn't take into account the directives that the Lord had given. Why? Because they scorned. They thought they could do things their own way, and that the Lord should be pleased with what they have to offer. But I tell you this morning, the Lord is not just pleased with any and all offering. We see it from beginning to end, that the Lord requires sacrifice. And the sacrifice that he desires is a sacrifice that he has laid for us. That's what he desires from us. And so when we see the priesthood, we see that this is nothing to be fooled around with. The priest is not It was not an office that was meant to be taken lightly. It's not something to be discarded or to be thought of as just another job. But the priesthood was something sacred. You see, the ritual of being cleansed and being purged for priests was extensive. And you had to be within the lineage to even have the opportunity to be a priest. You had to be in this Levitical lineage to even have access to this priesthood. Otherwise, you were ostracized. Otherwise, you were on the outside. Otherwise, there was no hope for you to get in. But you see, I love the Lord because He uses types and shadows to be able to show us what is to come. See, this priesthood was not the end-all and be-all of what the Lord desired. But it was a type and a shadow. For He says that He would make of us a royal priesthood. He says that I have consecrated you and set you apart to be able to accomplish what I desire to do. The Lord has called us, and some of us, if we were to stand and tell our testimonies, we'd see from what a mighty long way the Lord has brought us from. How He's pulled us out of the pit of despair. How He's taken us and He's washed us and He's cleansed us and He's taken us from our hopelessness, taken us from a life of despair and made something out of us. But He's consecrated us and taken His own blood. See, no longer the blood of rams or the fat of goats or the offering of animals. No longer the offering of animals, but now His own blood has He taken to cover us. It's that blood that He takes to cover us, to consecrate us, to purify us, and to wash us, to make us meet for His use. That's what He desires of us. And so when we look at the ancient priesthood, we gain some lessons that we can take with us, that we can apply to our own lives. First of all, the priest had to be consecrated. For the priest went before the Lord or went before the temple and wasn't right or wasn't washed, he was dead. That's why they had little bells and pomegranates and bells on the bottom of their skirts so that the people would be able to hear if something happened to the priest. For if he went before the altar, if he went before into the tabernacle and didn't come right, that was it. He was dead. We have been given the opportunity. The Lord has given us the directives that we must follow in order to be able to come before Him. And we're blessed in this dispensation, for it's not a one-shot deal. The Lord gives us grace and extends mercy unto us. That means no matter where we've come from, no matter what we've done, we have the opportunity to make it. Just the fact that we're here today, the fact that we have breath in our body, the fact that we have life in our body means that grace has been extended to us. But sometimes we take the long suffering of the Lord, we take it for granted. We just assume that here we have another day. We just assume it. We sort of take it for granted. We assume we make plans for the future as if tomorrow is promised, but tomorrow is not promised. There is no guarantee of tomorrow. And yesterday as we went to a funeral, my mind started to think about how we put so much stock into tomorrow. We make plans for the future, never really knowing what's going to happen. You see, there's so many things in life that we think will happen. There's so many things that we plan for and things that we want to arrive, and so we make the proper arrangements for those things. You know, I've been journaling lately, and something the Lord has given me is writing, and this thought sometimes the most random thoughts pop into my mind. And so I thought about this. I don't know what prompted this thought, but I thought about something, and I started to write, and I said, you know, I've been planning my wedding since I was 14 years old.
Go ahead.
Now, some of you are laughing, but I know there are many women in the country who've done the same thing, so don't act like you weren't there too. But I've been planning my wedding since I was 14 years old, and as I started to write, I started to think about it. I started to think about, you know, how things have changed over the years, how I kind of had that person in my bridal party that I yanked them out because they did something I didn't like, or how, you know, I changed the colors and all these different things.
Oh, Lord.
But then I started to think about it, and I started to think, okay, date. I'm like, I don't even know if I'm going to get married. I started to think about it, so I said, you know, I put so much effort. I remember when I was in high school, I had this whole chart. I had my guest list all written out, and I had little stars just in case. You know, it was a very detailed. It took time and effort and thought. But then I started to reflect on it. I said, wait a minute, I don't know even if this is going to happen.
Oh, no.
And I was looking through my mail, and I was looking through insurance papers. And, you know, we buy insurance, and the world has us so geared to buy insurance to prepare for the what-ifs. You know, you don't know if someone's going to break into your house, but it could happen. So just in case, you better buy a certain amount of coverage so that you can get your stuff back. You know, you don't know if you're going to get into a car accident, but if you get behind the wheel, you know, they won't even let you behind the wheel without car insurance. And I started to think about that. I said, my God, we have insurance and protection for all these things that we don't know that are going to happen. But yet the one thing that we know is going to happen, we don't prepare for. People push it aside. You know, I was talking to my mom the other day. I said, your mom, I made a will. She said, don't talk like that. I said, well, why not? She's like, that's so morbid. And I told my brother, he had the same reaction. He's like, I don't want to hear it. I said, but why? Why do we get so defensive about something that we know is going to happen? When I told her, I said, Mom, listen, I need to get new homeowners insurance. She's like, okay. And she sat down and started to reason with me. It's like, as if it was, of course. Like, what are you going to do? Of course. Why would you not have apartment insurance? Why would you not have this? But as soon as I started talking about something that I knew was going to happen, everything turned upside down. No one wants to hear that. Why? Because we know that death is inevitable. We know that it's inevitable. And we have directives to be able to prepare for it. We have an insurance policy, if you will, that is guaranteed and that is assured. But yet so many people are afraid to say, listen, well, I don't think that's really going to happen. And I was walking in the metro this day, and it's so funny how the Lord just puts little messages, and I'm completely detached, but that's all right. How the Lord puts little messages in our way, and there was a tract laying on the ground, and it simply said, what if it were real? What if it were true? In other words, what if all that you heard about the Lord, and all that you heard about the splendors of heaven, and all that you heard about the realities of hell, and the lake that burned with fire, what if it were all true?
What you gonna do?
Lord. There's something dangerous about living without insurance. Because it is very possible that you could get into an accident. And if you get into an accident, then you've got a hefty price to pay. Why? Because you didn't take the precautionary measures ahead of time to be able to get things in order. You didn't do what had to be done, even though you knew the possibility exists that this could happen. You didn't take the time, and the government won't let you get by because they've got to have you find not only you have to pay the damages on your car, but they'll also give you a ticket. Because they think that it's irresponsible to get behind the wheel of a car and not have protection. Well, I ask you this morning, how much more irresponsible is it to live life without having a guaranteed insurance policy? How much more dangerous is it to go through life and not know where you're going? How much more dangerous is it to go through life and just take it haphazardly and say, oh, well, whatever happens, happens? My God. If even in the natural, life shows us that we've got to have protection for the things that we don't know are to come. How much more are we to have protection and coverage for what we know is beyond a shadow of a doubt promised to each and every one of us? Stand with me this morning. In the directives that we read, the priests, this consecrated priesthood, had a specific purpose. And their purpose was to be the intermediaries between the people and their God. And because they had that responsibility, there were certain things that they had to do. But because they didn't heed to the mandates of the policy, if you will. See, in order to have the benefit of an insurance policy, you've got to obey certain rules. There are certain conditions. Sit down for a minute. There are certain conditions that are in play. You can't just live recklessly and leave your door unlocked to your apartment and expect the insurance company to pay the policy. No. See, if you are irresponsible and you don't do your part, then you can't, exactly, thank you, Brother Cliff, if you don't do your due diligence, then you can't expect the insurance company, and trust me, they'll be quick to tell you that they're not going to pay. They will be quick, because they'll have the inspector that comes and say, listen, okay, I don't see any damage in the window, okay, there's no damage at the door, so how did the intruders get in? What happened again? Oh, you left your door unlocked. Oh, you mean you gave them free access to be able to come in and do whatever they wanted?
No coverage.
Well, forget it. You're on your own. If you could do that, then you're on your own. Why? Because there was not due diligence that was put in place. You knew that you had to secure your items. In fact, these days, they even ttell you, forget about just locking the door. Make sure you have a home alarm system. Make sure it has a fire detector on it. They give you all these stipulations. Say, well, if you don't have this one, I'm not going to